हाँ,
तो सीधी चालू कर
तो नहीं
वो तो देखा नहीं क्या
Very good evening to all of you. Today, after a long break, we are starting again Facebook Live. It was a Diwali period. Then, after Diwali, we wanted to start again, but because I had the Corona, we didn't start it. But now onwards, we will come with some different Facebook Live. We will announce it shortly. Today, we are starting with our President Madam, Dr. Deepthi Madam. Dr. Deepthi Mehta, she is President of TAS, and she is very senior anesthetist from Rajkot, and she is going to speak about encounter with anaphylaxis. Anaphylaxis is like a nightmare for all of us, and if it happens, it is always difficult to manage. Dr. Deepthi Mehta will share her experience with anaphylaxis with all of us. I invite Dr. Deepthi Mehta, madam, for the presentation. Please, madam.
Thank you, Hetal. Thank you, Hetal. Just a minute. My slides are visible?
Yes. Please,
hello.
madam.
Yes. Okay. Shall I
madam,
start?
it is visible. Yes,
okay.
madam.
Okay. Good evening, friends. First of all, on behalf of TAS Committee, I would like to thank all the e-presenters and e-gurus who had presented so far on this platform and has made this platform popular. Thanks a lot, friends. Actually, I did my MD from BJMC Ahmedabad, and then I joined a CMC hospital, Velo, where I worked for 3 years as my husband was pursuing his MCH urology there. Once he finished, we came back to our hometown, which is Rajkot, and we joined One Trust Hospital, where I worked for 4 years. A few of the cases has happened in that tenure, where I was working alone without the canopy of a senior anesthetist and without the aid of a junior anesthetist. But these cases which I encountered, I think they are still relevant today. So I'll be sharing with you all. I'll be sharing under the headings of case presentation, lesson learned from each case, management of anaphylaxis, and NAP 6 data, which is a National Audit Project 6 data, which is the landmark and the largest study on a perioperative anaphylaxis. Yes, my first encounter made me go blank like this slide for a few seconds. Friends, watch out, bad days don't come with a warning. So this was the very first case in the morning. He was a middle-aged man, was posted for pyelolithotomy, and plan was to do it under a general anesthesia. Now the facilities which were available with us were basic Boyles machine with Halothane Flutec vaporizer and the ECG monitor. So induction was done with the sodium thiopenton and the scoline, and for maintenance, I was going to use a pancuronium. Position was to be given was a left lateral position. Now, if we look at the sequence of event, as he was coming out of the scoline, I had given pancuronium, and I wanted an antibiotic to reach before the incision is put. So I was giving antibiotic, and we were positioning the patient. Suddenly, I noticed goosebumps all over the body. I had never seen goosebumps like that before or after this case. And I commented too that why he is having cold, why he is shivering, he is under anesthesia. But at the same time, my heart rate went up to 80, from 80 to it shot up to 150 per minute. Radial was impalpable and femoral was barely palpable. And blood pressure was hardly 70 millimeter of mercury. So immediately we turned the patient supine, gave a head low, IV fluids were open, and we gave Ringal Lactate almost 500 ml in 10 minutes. We used to put 16 gauge cannula and then started colloids. Vasopressors also initially diluted mephentermine was given and then started a dopamine. Blood pressure started improving, but that time I noticed a tight back and there were urticaria and rash. Till that moment, I was hand ventilating because we didn't have a ventilator. So I was able to ventilate, but suddenly I was not, and I was not able to ventilate. There was can't ventilate. I checked the air entry was barely heard. Checked the tube also. Thinking that it's a bronchospasm, I tried treating it with a bronchodilator. But bronchospasm, rash, and urticaria together gave us the diagnosis. So now next step in the treatment was to give adrenaline. But heart rate on a monitor was showing 150 per minute and it was showing STT changes on the monitor, which was quite worrisome. So I was a bit hesitant to give adrenaline. So I called for the help. We had physicians there available in our hospital. So we gave adrenaline 0.2 ml subcutaneously. It had a dramatic effect. Bronchospasm got immediately relieved, PPs got stabilized, and heart rate came to 80 per minute. So this was my first encounter with anaphylaxis. It is a rare phenomenon, but may have the life-threatening consequences when encountered and not managed correctly. If you look at the further event, patient started developing angioedema, neck was swollen, tongue also got swollen, so surgery was postponed. We extubated once the pancuronium effect was wearing off and he was able to maintain the airways, so we extubated on the table. He was taken up for the surgery once the angioedema subsided, so we took him after 3 days. We did it under general anesthesia without the antibiotic ampoxin, which was culprit to cause the anaphylaxis. This is another patient who was a 22-year-old patient who sustained a road traffic accident and he came to the hospital with hip dislocation and fractured shoulder. They were planning to do emergency relocation of the hip and definitive surgery for the shoulder to be done later on. So we took the patient in directly to the theater and he was induced with sodium thiopentone and the scoline. But he coughed after the scoline and it became difficult to mask ventilate also. So I intubated him somehow, but it was difficult to ventilate too. And air entry was hardly present. I did the laryngoscopy again, tube was well positioned, it was not endobronchial. So considering bronchospasm, we tried treating it with a bronchodilator. At that point of time, aspiration was going on in my back of my mind. He had developed hypotension and tachycardia also. So I was treating with the fluid, thinking that it may be hypovolemia because of a fractured shoulder and a fractured hip. He developed rash and urticaria. So then we came to a diagnosis, we gave adrenaline. So hip relocation was done on the same day as it was an emergency. He was taken up for the definitive shoulder surgery after 3 days. It was done under general anesthesia without the scoline and it went uneventful. This is another young patient for varicose vein ligation and the surgery was going on in a spinal anesthesia. But during the course of the surgery, there was a significant amount of a blood loss. So I started volume expander and we were giving it over a period of half an hour. But hypotension worsened, which was around 70, it came to 50 milliliter of mercury and there was itching, urticaria and rash. We treated him with the fluids and adrenaline subcutaneously and it was uneventful. This is 1 month old baby for emergency knee arthrotomy. We had spontaneous induction was done with the halothane and endotracheal tube was put. For maintenance, atracurium was given. He developed bronchospasm and tachycardia. Bronchospasm, initially we were treating it with a bronchodilator, but did not relieve. So I called for the help, and pediatrician was called. We gave adrenaline subcutaneously and had a dramatic effect. This is another young patient who came for implant removal from the humerus. This was planned case to be done under general anesthesia because my surgeon was not very comfortable with the supraclavicular block. So we induced the patient with the sodium thiopenton and the scoline. He coughed after the scoline. I looked at the surgeon and inquired, to my luck, it was the same hip dislocation patient, again landed up with having a scoline anaphylaxis with me. We treated him with adrenaline and it was uneventful. This is another young patient for a ulnar fixation who had, we were doing it under supraclavicular block. So we gave a landmark guided block with eliciting the paresthesia, and I was injecting the drug and was talking to the patient. Suddenly she had a complaint of severe nausea and vomiting, but there was no hypotension. Tachycardia, rash and urticaria was there. I noticed that sister was giving antibiotic when I was giving a local anesthetic. So it was an anaphylactoid reaction to the antibiotic ceftriaxone. We treated him with a steroid, antihistaminics and antiemetics. Hemodynamically, she was stable, so did not require adrenaline. You must be wondering that why I am telling about all these cases, because what I think is each case which I encountered is different. From each case, I have learned a different lesson. Agent causing in each case also is different, and anesthesia, mostly it was general anesthesia, but it did happen in regional blocks also. So that's why I would like to share with you. Now from each case, what mistakes or what oversights we did for each case and a lesson learned from each case, I would like to share. Actually, we were doing a lot of multitasking. I was positioning the patient, muscle relaxant was just in, and was giving antibiotic. Hypotension which occurred, I attributed it to an induction of anesthesia, positioning and a hypovolemia. Goosebumps were noticed, but I did not think that it was because of the severe vasoconstriction of the anaphylaxis. And lastly, and the most important, I was a bit hesitant in giving the adrenaline. So lesson learned from this case was to try to minimize multitasking. Always have a needle of suspicion about anaphylaxis. Rash, bronchospasm and urticaria be delayed too. It may not appear till the blood pressure is stabilized. Give adrenaline early, and adrenaline, we shouldn't be scared of using it. I would like to say a few things about the symptoms. Is erythema and urticaria is because of a cutaneous vasodilatation, whereas sweating, goosebumps, nipple erection, pallor is because of a cutaneous vasoconstriction. And this cutaneous vasoconstriction is severe phenotype than the vasodilatation, and it is because of a profound stimulation of the sympathetic system. Coming to the second case, which was a hip dislocation patient. Actually, many a time we treat isolated symptoms. Here, as it was an emergency surgery, he was not nil by mouth as per our routine patient. So it was nagging in my mind, and I attributed the bronchospasm to the aspiration, silent aspiration. Same way, hypotension which occurred, I was attributing to a hypovolemia. Putting two symptoms together took me some time. And another thing was, till that I would have used scoline hundreds of times, and I had wrong notion in my mind that scoline can be the least likely agent to cause. So lesson learned from that case was always try to take a holistic approach towards the patient, reason out the every symptoms which occur. And most important, scoline is the commonest muscle relaxant to cause anaphylaxis. And another mistake which we had done for that patient should have been informed about this incident. We should have given anesthesia or allergy card to the patient. In this third patient of a varicose vein, hypotension which was not responding, we started anyway volume expander at that time. And if it is not responding, we should think of some other cause than just attributing it to the bleeding during the surgery. So drug which was used for the treatment of hypotension, that itself can cause deterioration, and symptoms can be delayed sometimes. It was delayed for, it appeared after volume expander was over almost. In this baby, 1-month-old baby, atracurium was given by the person who was helping me out, and he pushed it like a bolus. So till this day, I give it slowly, and I still nag my staff to give it slowly. As the implant removal case, as I already said, the first time we had not given the card. Another thing, he came after 3 to 4 years, so I couldn't recognize the patient. So major lesson learned from that patient was always document, document and document. Either give document in the card, document in the discharge summary, and document and inform the patient also about this incident. This patient in a supraclavicular block, we were injecting the local and antibiotic at the same time. After this incident, I try to avoid these things, and grade 1 or 2 grade anaphylaxis may not always require adrenaline. So for anaphylaxis, high index of suspicion and vigilance is the key for successfully treating it. And if you look at the definition wise, it is defined as a severe life-threatening generalized systemic hypersensitivity reaction, as it is a rare phenomenon but may have the life-threatening consequences when they are encountered and not managed correctly. Especially anaphylaxis under anesthesia is a unique and hazardous situation, and most importantly, it is difficult to diagnose also under anesthesia, because anesthetist is alerted to crisis, or he comes to know about this when it is severe enough to cause a CVS and the respiratory collapse, or sometimes it presents with CVS and respiratory collapse only, and earlier signs symptoms may remain unrecognized as they are unconscious and they cannot complain and they are under the drapes. And severity may be underestimated by the anesthetist. Another thing is CVS deterioration may be masked by the lighter plane of anesthesia. So we miss that, and hypotension and difficulty in ventilation may have other common cause that has to be excluded before coming to the diagnosis of a anesthesia. And we use multiple drugs over a short period of a time, that again makes it difficult to diagnose under anesthesia. Allergic agents may not always be an IV agent, so then it is difficult to identify, because skin disinfectant or latex can be the cause, where it is delayed for 15 to 30 minutes even. Coming to the incidence, it is difficult to estimate. In Canada, it is around 1:3,500, whereas in Norway, it is 1:6,000. Whereas in Australia, it ranges from 1:10,000 to 1:20,000. Mortality rate also ranges from 3.5% to 10%. Actual figures are difficult to know, as a lot of underreporting happens. Mechanism, I am sorry, I don't think I'm able to see this slide here. But mechanism has been mentioned is non-IgE mediated mechanism and IgE mediated mechanism. In non-IgE mediated mechanism, directly the mast cell degranulation happens because of the antigen, whereas in antigen antibody reaction causes the mast cell degranulation and releases the vasodilatory factors into the circulation. Coming to the grades of anaphylaxis, grade 1 is a mucocutaneous sign, where generalized erythema, urticaria, or with or without angioedema happens. Grade 2 is multivisceral sign with moderate hypotension and a moderate bronchospasm, whereas grade 3 is life-threatening mono or multivisceral sign with life-threatening hypotension and severe bronchospasm can be there. Cutaneous symptoms may be absent in grade 3 and 4 because of a severe vasoconstriction, and grade 4 is cardiac arrest. General measures to be taken to treat the anaphylaxis is, if you are suspecting some agent at that time, just stop that agent, give a Trendelenburg position, and discontinuation of the anesthetic agent may help in resuscitative efforts because the depressant effect is avoided. Major stress in anaphylaxis has been put on a call for the help. If you look at the recent recommendation of the treatment, They say call for the help immediately because lot of tasks to be accomplished simultaneously. So do not attempt to resolve every problem unaided. One person can review the situation and can spot if things are missing. Always get the information from the surgeon also, which can tell us to stop the surgery or accelerate the surgery. And always make a detailed note where you mention symptoms, severity, time, course, and the treatment given to the patient. Therapeutic measures to be taken to to maintain airway, volume resuscitation, and most important is adrenaline. So if it is first thing is secure the airway, given 100% oxygen. If it is a regional anesthesia, mask, and if required, secure it. Large volume is required because severe vasodilatation occurs, and there is a severe capillary leakage occurs. Sometimes almost 70% of the volume may extravasate in an interstitial space within 15 minutes. So volume around 20 ml per kg to 30 ml per kg may be required. So crystalloid is preferred and colloid is second line of treatment. We have to continue this volume resuscitation till the hemodynamic stability is achieved. And the most effective drug is adrenaline. It is to be given as early as possible. Alpha agonist activity reverses the vasodilatation and edema. It has a positive inotropic effect too. It dilates the bronchial smooth muscle. It reduces the release of mediators, that is leukotrienes and histamine. The doses of adrenaline suggested is 50 mics IV. So in some countries, they have a pre-filled syringe of 1:10,000 adrenaline, which contains 100 mics per ml. Of that, half ml should be given or 0.5 ml should be given. In our country, we get 1:1000. So that ampule has to be diluted in 10 ml, and of that, half ml only should be given. Do not give the undiluted 1:1000 adrenaline concentration IV. If there is no IV, IM 0.5 ml of 1:1000 adrenaline can be given. Now, different guidelines suggest different bolus doses. According to anesthesia, Great Britain and Ireland, it is 50 mics bolus. French guidelines for a grade 2, they say it's 10 to 20 mics, and grade 3 and above is 100 to 200 mics. Again, Australian and New Zealand Society is 20 mics for moderate and 100 to 200 mics for severe reaction. So standardization in the bolus doses is still required. Infusion dose suggested is 0.05 mics per kg per minute. And again, Australian, French, Spanish, and other guidelines say 0.1 to 0.5 mics per kg per minute. Adrenaline is effective for all the symptoms. It is especially in cardiovascular and respiratory symptoms also, whereas antihistaminics are mainly effective for the skin and GI symptoms. There are few cases of refractory anaphylaxis too. Then noradrenaline or vasopressin can be tried. Patient on beta blocker may not respond to adrenaline, so we may have to give a glucagon 1 to 2 milligram IV. If there is only bronchospasm without a hypotension, beta-2 adrenergic agonists like salbutamol IV or a nebulizer can be given. Antihistaminics and corticosteroids have a place as secondary treatment for anaphylaxis. They help to reduce edema, cutaneous symptoms, and relapse in case of a refractory anaphylaxis. And in steroid, hydrocortisone is preferred. Now coming to the National Audit Project, which is NAP6, which is conducted on a perioperative anaphylaxis. This was a retrospective study where they collected and reviewed over a period of 1 year. So almost in 2018, they collected the cases. The patients who had grade 3 to 5 anaphylaxis were included in this study, and it was from all the NHS hospital in UK. This study is a landmark and the largest study conducted on a perioperative anaphylaxis. They surveyed the anesthetists who came across the anaphylaxis. According to that, anesthetists experienced once in 7.25 years one case of anaphylaxis. These cases were evaluated by a multidisciplinary review panel which comprised of anesthetist, allergist, intensivist, immunologist, and the patient's representative. According to NAP6, it presents unexpectedly. It has a dramatic symptoms, require prompt recognition and action to ensure the optimal outcome for the patient. The aim of this study was to create an awareness about the anaphylaxis. Another thing, they wanted to study the management and outcome of the anaphylaxis cases. Major stress has been put on as it is a rare event, so adequate experience in managing an event is not possible. So simulation training in perioperative anaphylaxis is very important for everyone to learn. Another thing which they stress is hands-on practice in diluting the adrenaline might be one way to achieve an adequate experience. And another area required is standardization of dosing of adrenaline. In their result, almost they had a 541 cases and grade 3 to 5 were 266 were identified. Causative agents were identified in 199. Of that, 148 was definite and 57 they could not identify the agent. If you look at the timing of anaphylaxis, 80% were after the induction and before the surgery. So that is a crucial time for this. 3% before induction and 3% after the surgery. Causative agents, first was antibiotic, neuromuscular blocking agents, chlorhexidine, and the latex were the causative agents in their study. If we look at the symptoms in the in their study, antibiotic was if we look at the causative agent, antibiotic was the culprit in 94% of the cases, 94 patients, and neuromuscular blocking agents in 65. Antibiotic most commonest was coamoxiclav, and neuromuscular blocking agents rocuronium was commonest. The scoline anaphylaxis, they found it presents more with a bronchospasm, whereas the atracurium presents with a hypotension. If we combine timing and etiology, if it happens within the minute, then we have to suspect neuromuscular blocking agents and the antibiotic. But if it happens during maintenance, then other agents like volume expander, latex, dye, or contrast can be the reason. Sometimes anaphylaxis can occur when the sudden shift in the blood and fluid level occurs, that is removal of tourniquet or uterine manipulation. Most common symptom presenting feature is a hypotension, that is 46% of them presented with a hypotension, and oxygen saturation was noticed in 4.7% only, and bradycardia in 3%. So and bronchospasm in 18%. So the hypotension is the commonest feature. Now, if the management part, what they found was recognition was prompt in almost 97% of the patient. They could recognize it. Treatment with adrenaline also was prompt in 83%, and quality of management also was good in 46%. Almost 86% of them had a guideline available to them, and 60% of them followed it. Adrenaline was not given in 19%, where in 8.4% received late and 11% did not receive it. They put a more stress on a fluid resuscitation because they found that it was lacking in 1 in every 5 cases. So fluid resuscitation is very important. Antihistaminics and steroids are not recommended, but some benefit could not be ruled out, so can be used. In their study, causes of they came across cardiac arrest and mortality also. So it was found with a high ASA grade patients, obese, coronary artery disease patient, or patients on beta blocker or ACE inhibitor. French study even used cardiopulmonary bypass for resuscitating, but still mortality occurred. So there can be few cases of a refractory anaphylaxis. Now the major question is, once anaphylaxis has occurred with induction, whether surgery to be continued or not. Actually, grade 3, once stabilized, it can be continued, but in their study, half the cases it was postponed. So according to that, grade 3 and 4, it is inadvisable to continue for the surgery. But basically, for each and every patient, risk-benefit evaluation should be done, because once anaphylaxis has occurred and the surgery is postponed, patient has to go for allergy evaluation in their context is required after that, and which can delay the surgery. So it has to be considered before cancelling the patient. Now, as I already said, the most important causative agent was antibiotic. So for that, their recommendation is to be given before the induction of anesthesia, because then lack of known allergy can be confirmed with awake patient. Severity of physiological derangements might be less, and investigation of anaphylaxis is simplified as fewer drugs are given before the induction. In their study, another thing what they found was patients who gave a history of a penicillin allergy, they switched over to teicoplanin, which is having more incidence of anaphylaxis. And there are always chances of having anaphylaxis even after negative test dose. So negative test dose does not prevent the anaphylaxis. And increasing antibiotic uses in the population may be one cause for sensitizing the population to an anaphylaxis or to an antibiotic. Regarding neuromuscular blocking agents, in a previous studies also the rates were almost 40 to 60%. So it is almost like an antibiotic. In their study, it is a lower rate is because antibiotic usage was more than the neuromuscular blocking agent. And risk with succinylcholine is higher than any other neuromuscular blocking agent. Investigations which we are supposed to send is is serum tryptase level, which is the mast cell protease, and it increases after 30 minutes. Half-life is 120 minutes and then it decreases. But the negative test for tryptase does not exclude on anaphylactic reaction. We couldn't send serum tryptase level because it was not available with us. But the samples, what is suggested by them is first sample is as soon as possible once the patient is stabilized, or as soon as you are able to take the sample, then 2 hours and 24 hours after the incidence has happened. And these sample tubes can be stored, if they are not transferred to the lab, they can be stored in the refrigerator at 4 degrees centigrade. Now, the major, if the anaphylaxis has occurred, they are referred to immunologist or allergy specialty. These facilities were not available with us, but in their study, they were supposed to refer it to the specialist. An anesthetist is responsible for initiating this investigation in collaboration with allergy specialist. They have to initiate this investigation. They have to inform the patient about the reaction and give it in written and verbal recommendation about the subsequent anesthesia also. And it has to be reported to the pharmacovigilance center. Shit, I'm a guide. 1 minute, I am not able to display the guidelines which were made by the Tushar Dikshit, but those guidelines were made by Tushar Dikshit for our TechOn 2016, and it has been put in all our theaters, which was in the consultation with all Great Britain and Ireland guidelines. According to that, again, call for the help is the most important thing, and then ABC is airway, and the circulation is the volume resuscitation is also important, and adrenaline doses suggested in those guidelines for 0.5 months. Now, coming to the conclusion is reporting is usually poor, which can be improved further by increasing the awareness about the anaphylaxis. Optimizing the history, they suggest if pre-operatively could reduce the number of the cases of anaphylaxis. As we already said, the test dose does not prevent it. Awake patient always reports the symptoms earlier. So earlier recognition is the key for the successful treatment. Now, anesthetist in their context has to report to MHRA, but still in their cases also only 70%, 24% only report to MHRA and 70% reported to the hospital incident reporting. This hospital incident reporting is lacking in our country. Few major big hospitals might be having it, but at least it is still lacking. It has not been done for all our cases. So I would suggest is we can start some sort of incidence reporting system where it can be reported anonymously. Then we can have our own idea. Recently in a GARS, like Dr. Ravi Shankar, Professor Ravi Shankar, he had started this incident reporting in his department, and they could definitely see their results and could come to a conclusion. So I'm of that opinion that we should report these cases so we can get better equipped with it. Thanks.
Thank you, madam. It was an excellent presentation. I wish you regularly do it. It was very practical and to the point. Can we take some questions, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Sure.
So there are a few questions like how can we differentiate bronchospasm from anaphylaxis?
There is
Like
no
in
clear cut.
there are chances of atraculum, there are chances of bronchospasm. Sometimes when we give fentanyl, there is a tight chest. We are not able to ventilate. So how to differentiate anaphylaxis from these other events when we induce the
Cli-
patient?
Clinically, you cannot differentiate between the two bronchospasm. But in atracurium, when we tried treating it with a bronchodilator. But when it did not respond, we had to switch to adrenaline. So that's the only thing you can do that, because there is
So
no
when
clear
we
cut.
yeah, so when we get bronchospasm, what should be our first response? We should be giving bronchodilator and steroid, or we should directly go to adrenaline.
No, the first line of the treatment is the if simple bronchospasm, bronchodilator and the steroid, because they even mention that anaphylaxis, also plain bronchospasm, can be treated with these two. So first line of the treatment is that only. You have to treat
Thank
with
you, madam. Another
bronchodilator.
question. Right, madam. Is there any role of adrenaline nebulization? Suppose patient is under spinal anesthesia, then can we go for adrenaline nebulization rather than giving it IV or subcutaneously?
I am not sure about the nebulization, because I think all the cases which I came across, it was used IV only. There is no guideline suggested the adrenaline nebulizer. None of the guidelines which I came across has suggested that.
Okay, madam. And any role of test dose, like before giving an antibiotic, give test dose, or before giving local anesthetic, give test dose? Any role of test dose to prevent anaphylaxis?
No, test dose has not been found effective to for stopping the anaphylaxis. So only thing what we can do is give it gradual. I mean, give it slowly. That's the only thing we can do.
Right, madam. Another question is from Dr. Prema, madam. Can furosemide can be given to flush out the precipitating drug?
No, in their guidelines, no mention about the furosemide.
There
It
are a
would
few
just
other questions also which you can answer on our Facebook group. It was
sure.
a wonderful presentation. Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot.